What does a seat at the table mean? For years, I've walked into boardrooms and felt this unbelievable void experience when diversity is absent, when there is no voice or not enough voices personifying the essence and strength that diversity generates. When I say a seat at the table, I think of dinner. When I think of dinner, I think of community. A seat at the table is welcoming all different thoughts and ideas into a community conversation. Connecting through different thoughts that will empower and greatly benefit those who we're meant to serve. I often ask leaders, is your board reflective of those that you serve? And 9 out of 10 times the answer is no. If diversity is not a part of your dinner table, meaning your board business, then it should be on the menu. And how do we get there? I want to invite you now to take a moment and think about all the rich cultures that surround us on a daily basis. A new face is emerging. Our society today is beaming with hopeful faces that shape and elevate a new manifestation of who we are and who we can become as a community. Diversity is a global landscape, rooted in the hearts of the real local communities, workplaces, and daily interactions. What do you think about when you hear the word diversity? It doesn't have to be in a boardroom. We can be exposed to diversity in your child's baseball team, a soccer team, at the parents' teacher meetings, or even within your faith groups. We all connect and serve as volunteers in different capacities. However, we should be intentional to make a community that is collectively responsible for our efforts. So how do you share your voice? Serving and connecting in your community can take on many forms. How do we as leaders push out of ourselves and facilitate growth in others? It is no longer necessary to board a plane and to travel to a foreign country to appreciate the differences and the beauty within them. Global diversity has become our backyard. I am welcoming you to join me in helping diversity and inclusion be top of mind for any company, any community group, or nonprofit. I need courageous community leaders to open doors and not only invite diversity and a seat at the table, but to provoke dynamic conversations and commitment to embrace the you must include attitude, because I believe that it's the only way forward. When asked, who do you think can join my board? Instead of talking about potential referrals or individuals to join boards, I recommend taking a different direction. I envision developing a framework or diversity plan that can be adopted by any leader and championed by existing board members, never losing sight of the value in engaging all levels, ensuring a sustained commitment to diversity, and creating a cultural shift of inclusion. But diversity by itself will not work. Having an inclusive process to recruit and retain diverse board members is a challenge, but it's paramount if you want to thrive in the 21st century. It is most important to understand that board diversity can help improve policies and procedures while still understanding that systemic discrimination exists. And while we did not create them, it becomes a part of our duty and our responsibility to repair and build a healthier and more inclusive interracial relations and amplify the positive cultural shift in our society today. So throughout my career, I've come to understand firsthand the challenges faced in trying to influence and contribute to good that comes from participating as a board member or serving in my community. For over 20 years, I've sat on boards and committees that I was either the only person of color, the only Latina, or the youngest generation represented. I'm in my 40s, even though I look younger. It was incredibly challenging to provide input and feel that my contributions were being valued and taken seriously. The sense of urgency almost propelled out of my board seat, and then I shifted my interest, instead of serving on boards, to learning about systems of inequities, stereotypes, and biases that affect all of us and our daily interactions with each other. I realized then that I was not the problem. So I want to share some professional anecdotes I experienced, because it's important to me that I capture your emotions and you too can appreciate the demand for diversity in every boardroom, especially because much of the decisions that impact us on a daily basis are made in the boardrooms. So one day, I remember a colleague telling me, "You're the first Puerto Rican friend I've ever had." And then another time being told, "You're different. You're not like the other Puerto Ricans," as if that was a compliment. So this one was the most surprising. I had worked really hard in this one place for over 6 years, and I thought I was doing well, and I was brought into the office and was told, people are complaining because you're voicing your concerns and your opinions all the time, which actually was part of my role. So my response was, "Excuse me, so you're telling me I'm not supposed to do my job?" And I was very confused. So you see, as a person of color, I worked in predominantly white workspaces where I felt that it was my job to teach others to be comfortable with both my visible and cultural differences, so that I was working on myself while helping others face their fears towards anyone that seemed different. So I had to teach myself to work harder and to do all things louder, so that I was never passed for an opportunity. Thus, I learned quickly that in order to effectively construct boardroom diversity, we have to shed light on the impact of being unaware of our own personal bias, how they may interfere in fully appreciating what diversity or what a person of color will bring to the table. These biases are advertised and acknowledged and accepted by media, movies, our circles of influence, and society as a whole. In my case, I met multiple social inequities: my ethnicity, my gender, my age. I strongly encourage, or actually compel, agencies to look into what diversity means to them. Is there an inclination to be more diverse and inclusive? If so, what do you want it to look like? If the agency is not ready, then why not? My recommendation is that if you serve youth, you should have youth representation. If you serve the elderly, then you should have representation. If you serve people of color, it's imperative that you have ethnic diversity on your board. I remember one time being asked to be on so many boards and so many committees that I was investing, after I was trying to quantify that, 40% of my time on volunteer work. And although my passion lies in civic engagement, I felt that we all have a responsibility to make our communities what we desire for ourselves. So I kept wondering, what about all those other amazing Latinos, Black leaders, Asian leaders, women leaders that are not being tapped into for diversity of thought? If indeed diversity was missing at the table, community leaders had a limited network, and I knew that they also had a limited exposure to people of color, therefore would engage naturally with that where they felt more familiar and they trusted. But in the end, that would bring a halt for transformation and inclusion. Although representing diversity on a board is and was an honor, I quickly felt burnt out. Looking at my experiences as a board member, I began to evaluate and explore the first statement people would say when recruiting me. "We need you. You would be great for our board. You would be great for our organization." I wonder if they even saw the value of the experiences and the expertise that I could bring? Or was it more about meeting their diversity goals or checking a box? One time, I walked into a boardroom, and there was an executive member of the board, white female, and as soon as I was approaching an empty seat that was next to her, she picked up her purse and she put it on the chair so that I wouldn't sit there. And then throughout the meeting, she was dismissing my contributions. So then it felt disempowering, frustrating. And then what happened after is that she sent a staff member to my office and to leave an article on my desk. And the title of the article was Token Puerto Rican. So I can't begin to explain how this affected me then and how it still haunts me now. Knowing that anyone would discredit my worth as a leader, as an advocate, as a person of high integrity and morals, how was it okay to ever imply that I held a position because of what I looked like, instead of how I worked? Not only was this insulting, it was hurtful. Yet I'm grateful for it because it brought me to this journey. I am committed to being a part of and ignite the shift in mindsets by instituting a better understanding of why recruiting diverse board members and adding more community voices is both possible and also necessary. But I have to warn you, achieving board diversity is not easy work, and there is a lot of front work that needs to happen. You would have to include an evaluation of your recruitment plan, being more flexible with your bylaws, making sure that board leadership is prepared to join this journey towards board diversity. So I remember in my early 30s being asked to join a board, and when I was reviewing the bylaws for that consideration, one of the requirements was to contribute $1,500 on a yearly basis, and I knew that I couldn't do that. So a little bit about my family structure. My mother and father both have 12 brothers and sisters, and I am the second oldest of more than 40 cousins here in Springfield alone. My father's side of the family is in Puerto Rico, and there's also more than 30, 40 cousins. So part of my responsibility as this tribe family that we are is also to help my family members. So I knew that giving $1,500 to an organization means that that would take away from my weekly contributions to my family. So I did accept the board position, but then I requested that instead of giving $1,500, can I get $1,500? That's one of the benefits of knowing a lot of people in the community. So I used partnering agencies, and I quickly became an ambassador for fundraising. So I share that story because I feel that it proves that you can find new ways to engage new audiences, diverse board members. You can use social media to recruit younger generations, which is crucial. Not reinventing the wheel and instead partnering with local groups specializing in board diversity. I think it's really important to have mentoring programs and look at emerging leaders and think of succession planning to capture best practices, and always find ways to increase diversity at the table. I have to believe and hold hope that when companies and its leadership look inward, find opportunities and execute inclusive practices, the possibilities of improving your bottom line is guaranteed. Our lives will forever be enriched when we connect with the diverse community that surround us. And I challenge you to actively seek diversity in your lives, to find your seat at the table, any seat, to make inclusivity a requirement and not a bonus. in all the spaces that you inhabit. Take care of yourself and each other. Thank you.